Crystal Palace 1, United 2. First win in 4, back on top in this universe of United where we swing wildly one way and the other. Everything is now rosy once again. Nick, how we doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good to see the 3 points.
I don't think we would have foretold it at half time, would we? I know personally I was thinking, what else could we talk about? The budget, Christmas, anything apart from what was unfolding at Selhurst Park. But then second half, just absolutely turned it round. Where do we start? Let's start with the usual stuff, the housekeeping. How do we set up? How do we go about doing what we did?
Yes, so the classic 3-4-2-1. You'll be surprised to learn from Amarim. Matched up against their 3-4-2-1, of course, in Glasner's approach. We said, didn't we, the last post-match analysis, what we'd like to see. There was a couple of things in there. I thought we saw most of that. Certainly, we did by the end of the game. We looked at the fact that Dorgu was, I mean, just not himself at all, really. When you look at the great international break he had, the last couple of games have not really been up to standard from him. Now, we can talk later, perhaps, about Amrim digging him out in front of the media, whether that was appropriate or not. But he was certainly right in what he has said about Dorgu. So we thought Dallo might start on that left side. He did indeed, and especially if Mount's coming in as well. We said Mount was a certain starter, especially with Cunha still injured, and we know that the Mount and Dallo link works so well. We've seen that from Fulham away and Sunderland at home in particular, where Mount dropping in just releases Dallo every time, and when that works well, it's no surprise that that one of the goals came from that side. We also thought there might be a case for Mazraoui being shifted inside. So we said Ahmad should take his position at right wing back, which he did. But we didn't see that final one, which was Mazraoui coming into the back three, meaning that, we'd have Yoro dropping out. So really interesting one. And I'm probably going to say it now, actually, from the outset, even though we'll dig a little deeper, that Yoro just shouldn't be playing at the moment. And that was seen clearly in that first half an hour. And kudos to Amarim for seeing it, albeit a little bit too late. But when Mazraoui comes into that back line, it just makes all the difference. And we have to emphasise, though we shouldn't have to, but that is just a case in point for the moment, for the time being. That's not a point on Yoro and Mazraoui quality per se. It's just taking it game by game. And yeah, that was the final thing we wanted. Oh, we also talked about maybe Mbeumo playing nine, if I'm being completely honest, but certainly being more central. And when he did that second half, we came alive. Or certainly we played, 10 times better than that first half, which was a bit of a sorry state.
Well, it was very, very familiar. It's like muscle memory kicked in Selhurst Park, didn't it? We've seen it a few times in recent years where not only do we not perform, but we get sort of meeker and meeker as the game progresses, as Palace, smell blood and essentially overpower us. And there were warning signs there in the first half, weren't there?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, if we talk about tactical approaches and the natural rhythm of the game, they knew what they were going to do. They were going to go high press, similar to Everton. They're going to say, right, you're going to go into your defence and long. We're going to stop that. And nice compact middle. We saw Wharton having a fantastic game, particularly in that first half. Um, and narrow wing backs when they don't have the ball. Pino was playing just behind Mateta at times in a floating number 10 role. Sarr again more narrow than you'd usually expect. So they knew what to do: dominate that middle, show us out wide. They know that when we go around and in, that there were not much threat, and that's because of the platforming of the wing backs in the final line, and the ball's not being as you'd imagine, from our wide players. So that was their game plan. Get us playing it out to the wing backs beyond the halfway line, and think, we'll just deal with you from there. We'll stay compact and narrow, and we'll win every ball you play into our box. And conversely, they've done the opposite. So getting the ball quick into Wharton, straight, straight breaking those lines passes that he does so well. We said a couple of pieces ago that he has the most progressive passes per 90 in the Premier League for a reason. And that doesn't necessarily mean balls into the final third. That's just, quick, short passes, medium, 20-meter passes, breaking lines, so accurate, so precise, and then away they go. They get us turned quick. It's into Pino, and then it's straight into Mateta, who caused Delit and Euro all sorts of problems from the off.
And we saw those two obviously link up with the penalty. Great ball through from Wharton. Out of form, Yoro gets caught by Mateta, and the rest writes itself, doesn't it? Although, to be fair, United were once again league league firsts in terms of being the first team to suffer from the new rule, penalty retake. Brilliant. Love making history.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the famous double touch. And that's right. Yeah, it wrote itself. You could feel that goal coming. That's the issue we have. That's the issue we have structurally. That's the questions we've been asking of Ruben in the last, even during the winning spell, so 6, 7 games now. Is that you can sometimes just feel the pattern and the understanding of what's going to happen when we're making silly errors. Yoro started on 13 minutes with a long throw from the left side. He's totally missed the header. Ball bounces, comes out. Wharton shot on goal. Uh, Similar from the right side. Ball came in. Delit and Euro are not communicating. They have a shot on goal. There's no surprise. Oh, sorry. Then the third thing that happens before their opening goal is Delit wins the header well, heads it down centrally to the right. Yoro just doesn't predict that, so he's not anticipating that. It's hit him. He's almost fallen over at the same time. Mateta's in again. They potentially should score there. So there's warning signs there before the penalty. And there's no kind of defensive cohesion there. And that's not just the back three, that's the whole shape per se that's allowing that ball to keep coming back. Didn't think Zirkzee played particularly well in that first half and didn't let the ball stick, and so the ball kept on coming back. And you're right, Mateta gets wrong side of Euro. He doesn't make the challenge in fairness to the Frenchman, but he does move his leg and he's trying not to touch the player, but inevitably he does. And whether it's an accident or not, it is a penalty.
So then we get to half time, 1-0 down, and it does feel very much deja vu. And I think massive credit has to go to everyone involved, really, for turning it around from that position. In a technical sense, what was done differently second half? Because I mean, from in an overview sense, it looked like we were just more at it, pressing more aggressively, better attitudes in general, to be, very reductive, a tactical Luddite that I am. What was done in terms of nuance? How did they turn that situation around from being essentially what looked like a lost cause?
I think a couple of things happened. We have not seen it back. We're straight on the whistle, but I think what we're seeing there is two major themes. We're talking about spacing. So spacing, and that's across the zones, right? So it's spacing in the back line, whether that means, the narrow back three, and then when Shaw and Euro were going, and then later Mazraoui. It's spacing in the midfield where first half I thought Fernandez was really far left, bizarrely. And that could be a case of, wanting Bruno to go and support that dangerous left side where Mount and Dalot, when they do interplay well, and Mount drops deep onto the halfway line and Dalot goes, that is when we spring that kind of compact mid-block trap, and that kind of counter press well. But I did think Bruno was too far left when you look at that. The space between him and Casemiro, instead of that normal double pivot, it was huge. And there's no wonder why Wharton and his midfield partner had no, every blade of grass in that first half. Likewise, you've got Zirkzee as that kind of, that false nine, and Mbumo then is too far right. There's games when we want him to hold that width, but perhaps not when Ahmad is right wing back. So you've got spaces in the back three, the middle four, and the front three. And I just thought it was just too easy for them to play through us. Amarim's clearly had a word about that. Praise where praise is due. tighten that midfield pair in particular. Ahmad's then asked to try Mitchell a lot more. He was a bit too deep in the first half, Ahmad, and Mitchell had some success going at him. Munoz had loads of success behind Dallo in the first half. It was that kind of play beyond our midfield, get it wide into the gap between wide centre back and wing back that we have always at the moment, and then getting the ball in. And Munoz in particular had great success in the first half an hour. Two or three balls where he's pulled it back and they've had chances. So it's about tightening those spaces and those gaps appearing in the field. And then I just thought it was a couple of instructions. So Bruno dropping a lot deeper, in Bumo kind of saying to Zirkzee, listen, if I come narrow and I'm like the nine, you then drop in and stop Wharton picking the ball up. So I thought we saw that from Zirkzee in the second half. A bit of a kind of good defensive acumen, dropping in on their deep line midfielder, stopping them playing out, and Boomer then becomes the nine. Ahmad is tucked in and ready to go if the ball is switched to him. And all of a sudden we're back to that Sunderland approach where we're not necessarily, all out high press, but we're a medium to high press, medium block. And when we get that ball in the middle, Casemiro and Fernandez, completely different pairing in the second half. I thought, either one of them could have been subbed at half time, but they've come out in the second half and performed admirably. And then we win that ball, and then in it goes to Dallo or Ahmad, and then Mbumo's looking for that second ball in behind. So there's definitely tweaks there. And then, of course, 54 minutes, the goal, which we'll come on to, but Mazraoui just comes on at the stroke of the goal, and that changes the game completely as well because we've got rid of a psychologically impaired, let's say, defender in Euro at the moment, just not himself. And he does seem to be a player that needs to be buzzing on a high, on the front foot, and in a winning team to be that fantastic player that we know he is.
As you say, 54 minutes. Zirkzee, credit where it's due. I mean, obviously we didn't go in on him for his performance on Monday, but a lot of people, ourselves included, rightfully asked questions of him. He looked rusty. He got distracted early on. He kind of embodied the frustration. And although I would say it took a world-class save to deny him get a goal on Monday, he looked again. I would say generally poor in the first half, but second half he looked like he had a bit more, minutes in the legs maybe. And the goal obviously gave him a massive lift. And it was you could ask questions over Palace's defending being a bit lackadaisical, over the goalkeeping, gambling on the right post. It was a nice finish, and he'll take it. It lifted him clearly, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely praise where praise is due. First half was poor again as he was in Everton. Um, and it's just a great run. Yeah, I mean, two very quick thinking set pieces has unlocked what was a mundane performance up until that point. So, yeah, it's nice to see. We don't want from those, low and deep angles, balls just lifted to the back post where there's too much loft on the ball, and Henderson can just come and claim it, or Gay or Lacroix can just head clear. It was a great bit of thinking. That's why he's this evening gone above Paul Scholes in the assist chart, which I just find phenomenal when you think how many games Scholes had. So he's now on 56 assists, I believe. So great quick thinking, lovely ball, narrow left. Xerxes made the run perfectly timed. And then you're thinking, in truth, you're thinking, great turn, let's get that ball across, whip that left foot, maybe we'll have a Mount or an Mbumo on the end of it. But he's gone for the shot. Fair play. He's thinking Henderson may spill it. He's gone for a great shot, really good power on the shot. Henderson's predicted that cross that we've just alluded to, and he's in the wrong position. Bang, it goes in the bottom right. So yeah, great goal. Yeah, nothing more to add. It's a really well worked free kick.
And I was saying personally on Monday, I wanted more people to sort of stand up and do something. Again in very reductive terms, try something. He did that, gambled, and took him possibly unexpected shot, and you get your rewards from it. So again, credit to him for that, for just having the courage of his convictions, really, to try it from there on his weaker side.
Definitely. And just generally that second half saw us have more shots on goal and like you say, doing the simple things, taking ownership, trying to make things happen on the edge of the area. And that's what we saw. And then we saw, I think it was close to double figure shots from inside the penalty area. And that's what's been missing in recent years for Manchester United. And yes, it's just one half of resilience and a great comeback where we just looked dead in the water, if I'm honest with you. But that's what you want to see. And when we went that little bit more direct in the second half, when De Ligt stopped inverting into the middle of the park when the man's is playing out from the goal kick, and they've got the high press and they just nick it almost every time. Um, we learned to use our nous and get the ball up to the wing backs quicker, and then into Mbumo and Zirkzee quicker. There was no surprise where that's where we've had some success in recent games. So yeah, spot on, Steve.
And you don't often see Palace rattle, do you? It's often leveled at us that we're too easy to play against. It didn't look easy for Palace in that second half. They were, they built this reputation, this modern reputation, on knowing exactly what they're doing at all times. But if you keep posing different questions, then you can unlock like fears in them, can't you? You knock them off their stride psychologically, and they were all over the show by the end. They didn't mount any kind of, to me, it didn't feel like there was any real danger once we got in front that there was going to be any change in the scoreline.
No, and as we've said just a couple of times already, if you'd have said that in the first half, you'd have called out for hijinks. So it was interesting. The definite move was Zirkzee on Wharton, and Fernandez or Casemiro then. So it wasn't necessarily man for man, but whoever was closest to stop him, because he's playing those incisive passes into Pino and Sarr, especially Pino. That lovely kind of arced movement around Mateta, which we've come to know from him this season, and then into Mateta. They were having so much joy with that we had to stop that. So we've had De Ligt getting closer to Mateta in the second half, even though he wasn't necessarily winning those aerial duels as we saw midweek versus Everton. And then, Zirkzee dropping on Wharton, Fernandez and Casemiro staying closer together, stopping the runners peeling off. Um, yeah, and that's what happened. So it's no surprise Wharton then was pulled off. So he's gone from being this, Scholes-like figure where they could easily have been two or three up. And when you just use very simple understanding of what's happening in game state and stop those passes happening, that's what happened. Because what was then happening is Munoz was getting more involved, Mitchell was getting more involved, and they just, it'd be a 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 situation every time they went forward. We just stopped that, and we went slightly higher in the press second half. We went man for man a lot more, cut half the pitch off to the left, cut half the pitch off to the right, and stopped them getting that big switch into the wing back. So those little things worked. I'm not going to say that that's what you want to see. You want to see that from the start. You want to see that from the start. It was a dreadful, dreadful first half an hour for Manchester United. But kudos where it's due, to the manager and the coaching team. They've turned it round. A bit of resilience and a really useful 3 points.
And a nice bit of quick thinking for the winner as well. And again, not to sort of over egg the pudding. They Palace didn't defend that free kick like a team who knew exactly what they were doing. They look like they've been rattled. They set up the wall terribly. Got Henderson, sort of shrugging and not getting himself set right early on. If you can knock teams off the stride, then it throws up more opportunities, doesn't it, for exploitation? And it's a brilliantly taken free kick that succeeded because they'd been rattled.
Goes back to that left side again, where we've been given credit. I think it's definitely been one of the partnerships of the season in that sense, Dalot and Mount, and who would have thought it? Certainly not two of my favourite players last season. And there's lots of questions about Dallow's positioning in defensive transition. Let's be clear. Um, In fact, moments before our goal, their deep free kick, and Dallow's left his man far side of the area. If you remember, it's a long diagonal ball. Dallow goes out remarkably, and Munoz comes in. Casemiro slips, unfortunately. There's a header across, and they've missed a glaring opportunity. So, by no means am I fully kind of in line with Dallo and his thinking, certainly defensively. But attacking wise, if we'd have seen that, Everton would have been happier, right? So when Mount gets it, that's the chance where Dallo should be making those diagonal runs. And I think that must have been said in training this week because we've seen that again. It was more of the Sunderland approach. And yeah, the free kick comes from exactly that. To your point on quick thinking, I'm praying that that is a well worked routine from training. It's just brilliant because the ref is walking back, so the next step is to whistle. Henderson's still on his post, but sees the ref, so he's like, right, I better shift over to the left now. Mount, I think, let's hope, goes to whisper to Bruno on purpose, as in, we know that this is going to happen. So we know as the referee's walking back to whistle, Mount's going to whisper, whistle comes, then Bruno's already been primed to touch it and Mount to shoot. Who knows? We don't know. Listen, set pieces these days, you wouldn't be surprised if that had been worked on. That seemed to be a massive part of the game in the Premier League this season. So I think it must have been because there's no way Bruno would just touch it to Mount there as he's whispering. There's just no way you'd be telling Bruno off for doing that, right? So I think it's a really well worked set piece. Touched, bang, the wall are going to jump. It's kind of to the side and under Lacroix's legs, but it's a great finish as Henderson is moving the other way. So, yeah, brilliant. On the flip side, it's two set piece goals, and we're not necessarily creating those high XG chances from open play.
No, just to address the point on whether it's deliberate or not. If there was two players in that United team, probably squad, that were going to cook up something like that, it would be those two, wouldn't it? In terms of football intellect, Bruno and Mason Mount are probably the high watermark for that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. You'd hope so. And Mount good all game, by the way. Bruno not so, as we said in the first half, but certainly second half. So yeah, let's hope that was something worked on.
In terms of to address the other point about yes, two more set piece goals. Yeah, obviously, we'll take them and just take the points and run, and then go another day, Thursday. But I do think credit has to be given because we sort of we tried to make concessions where we could on Monday for no Cunha, no Sesko, and that leaves you very light up top. Two of your three major summer signings in attack. So to go and dig out that win, find a way to win in their continued absence today is I don't want to get carried away, but it's you can give a lot of credit and you can also draw a lot of confidence from it, I would say.
That's right. Yeah. And you've got every right to say that. I think I alluded to it earlier. I stick by the point that structural issues cause us to have some issues, cause us to have that delayed kind of, um, let's say, attacking acumen in games. Certainly anything where we're pushed out wide and not through the middle of the pitch, we struggle. And then through the middle of the pitch, there are questions about, Bruno carrying it too much looking for openings and that kind of frenzied ball arc that we see where it's like a front five at times. But of course, when you win the game and it's away in London, which we don't do very well, I think it's 12% of games in London. Um, you've got to give credit. It's a great response to the Everton game, which was horrendous. It's a great response to the first half that we've seen today, which is as bad as what we've seen under Ten Hag and Ole. Let's make no mistake about it. And luckily, they didn't get that second goal. But without, like you say, Seshko and Cunha, um, there's another player there missing. Then we've done, really well, and it's a really admirable response there from everyone involved, from coaching staff to the teams being more resilient. And that goes back to those things we said earlier about selections and. If you get those things right, and Masraoui coming into that back line, providing that thrust on the ball, getting beyond, not necessarily wide of Ahmad, but helping Ahmad in close proximity. allowing Mbumo to shift inside, and then Mazraoui taking the space Ahmad had previously held, allowing Ahmad to come in and shoot at times. Those things, Shaw carrying the ball a lot more today, playing it into to Mount at the right time, allowing Dalot to go. When you do those things, you're going to get better performances, and better performances bring points on the board. So, did we deserve it? Probably just about. When you look at, well, even more possession than them today. Actually, was it 56, 54% than them? And they were obviously 44-ish. So, shots on goal were more. So there's been a response in that second half, and that's what you wanted to see. But why do we wait till that point? And that's the question mark.
The other player injured is Harry Maguire, which sort of leads into addressing the issue of Lenny Yoro. Like you say, he could do with a rest.
Mhm.
Maguire's out injured still. We don't know a timescale on that. Lisandro Martinez, brilliant to see him back today. Shout out to Luke Shaw as well. You know, he was dug out on Monday for his performance. Some big tackles today. You know, it looked like a guy who's been called not brave. You know, he's thrown himself into a few tackles, won them all, and done really well. But in terms of taking Yoro out of the firing line for a game or two, give him a chance to sort of catch his breath, watch, reset. How do you form a back three out of what we've got available now that Leach is back?
Well, first of all, I think obviously coming back superb. Really good to see the Argentinian and the great chant from the crowd as well as he enters the field. It's going to take him a while to get back in, of course. I don't think he starts the next game, but it's your question's still valid, and I think we just go back to what we said. I think it was after the Forest game where again we've had that the many balls put in the box, the tactic most teams use against us, although Palace not so much today. Um, and the fact that, Euro Dillet Shaw are struggling to deal with aerial balls, there's absolutely no doubt about it, certainly in those particular circumstances, not just aerials, generally where Euro and Dillet can win without without pressure, for example. But we were suffering aerially. So we said after that game, we'd like to see, not in the not too distant future, Martinez coming back in at some point. Um, then on the right side of De Ligt, because I think De Ligt earns his position at the moment. You've then got Mazraoui as challenging. So it's a tough one. Can you play Martinez centrally all right in the back three? Probably not, because the reason that's tough is Shaw's been playing really well. Everton aside, and the odd goal, but we concede a fair few goals in the Premier League, as that goals against column shows us. Shaw's been fantastic this season. And going back to your point about the two key challenges in the penalty area, they come from a Euro and a delayed mistake. So, Shaw's done superb again today. Um, and therefore, if you then bring in Martinez in, the question becomes, does Shaw go to left wing back? Um, and I think it was you who said, Steve, a couple of games ago, that might be a question mark. That might be an ask of his aging legs.
I would say so. I would say so. Just to, I personally feel like Glasner. I mean, Glasner's obviously doing a superb job at Palace. Given that he's often used as a stick with which to beat Amorim, because he's able to succeed in the similar sort of setup, not identical, but similar kind of setup, and obviously not the same arena. Pressure at Palace is different to pressure at United. Obviously, it's not a fair comparison, and yet people do make that comparison. I think people overlook the fact that Glasner, if you go back to last season, so he joined midway through 23-24, I think February 24, ended that season really well, including the 4-0 destruction of us, which was, a low point. Um, but 24-25, yes, they ended the season with the FA Cup in Europe. They go on and win the Community Shield at the start of this year. But in the Premier League, they won one game prior to December last year. It took time, didn't it, to get the message across and lay those foundations. So I don't know, is it not fair, generally speaking, is it not fair, generally speaking, that Amorim gets given that time as well?
Listen, that again, we're happy to disagree on this channel. If that's a valid point of view, a valid question. It's not that the kind of and I'm not hammering him out, but the hammering out crowd are getting on his back on purpose. I think there's valid questions to be asked about, what was prior to today, one win a month. And 16 losses, is it, or more? So there's valid questions, and there's I take your point on Glasner, but he's still got his team playing a brand of football that was recognizable, stylish, a different approach to a 3-4-3. He's on record as saying that, he's using a system that matches the players he has. If you flip that to Amorim, that isn't the case from the start, certainly from November 2024, when the young 39-year-old comes in. He's pushed that system on a team that's clearly set up for 4-2-3-1. So and now we're getting somewhere, right? We are getting somewhere. There's definitely there's something to be said about our greater cohesion in the last 7 or 8 games. But is that enough? That's just a question for the board. It's not for us as fans. It's a question. What does Jim mean when he says 3 years? It certainly doesn't mean he's got 3 years of just trying his best. We have to see results in that period. And it has to be, in my view, by the end of the season because, and okay, if you want to say till the next international break, next October, because you can't, as Manchester United, rest on your laurels and accept that eighth or ninth is a good finish in the Premier League. So you might argue that 15th to 8th is a good jump. No, it's not. We've got the players and the resources and the acumen and the training facility now at Carrington, and X £100 million spent in the summer and the previous window, where we have with players, with coaches, with the wraparound that's now there and the board level direction, and understanding where we want to be and where we should be. So, that, okay, in the micro, 2 draws and a loss, not that bad. But when you look at individual games about how that came about, we could be right up the table now. And then we're not talking about this negativity. We're saying, oh, listen, fourth, fifth, sixth is an option for us. It is a possibility. So I don't think you get the same time to answer your question at United as you do at Palace or at Wolves, where we saw a horrendous run of form for the previous manager there. And that's absolutely correct. So but we've got the win today. Like we've always said, we're taking it game by game. That's what analysis is. So can we build on that in the next game? Can we see some selection issue being ironed out? Can we see the structural issues being ironed out? Can we see greater chances from open play, higher XG chances? We've actually had a lower XG performance than Palace today. So it is, and 2 set pieces and the Spurs game was the Bruno corner, etc., etc., etc. So there's valid questions from yourself, and I'm always generally a manager in person. Always give the person time. But when I see something that perhaps not working over a long sustained period, I don't think there's anything wrong to ask really serious, challenging questions about the manager at that point, and that is the point we're at.
You mentioned his age there, 39 when he came in. He's 40 now, which is, for the pressure that comes with a job is young, isn't it? I'm 44 and I struggle with the pressure of going to Aldi and getting everything. You know what I mean? It's a hell of an undertaking being manager of Manchester United at any age, but let alone,
Yeah.
40 years old. He said, I think he did an interview to mark his first year anniversary last week, and he said, he's learned so much. Given so inexperience could be thrown at him, but that is the one thing that it can automatically correct by keeping him in the position and giving him the opportunity to learn. So he's done well today. He's definitely done well today. We're likely, I would say, to face, Nuno's West Ham. It's going to be another low block counter-attacking approach, you would think, on Thursday. What lessons do we want to see learned by Amorim going into Thursday's game then?
Yeah, it's I think that the question has a number of parts, and I think generally speaking, you do have to then look at the age he was when he came in and say, was that the right thing? So I think you could argue that you're looking at a young manager coming from a Portuguese league who's got some wonderful ideas about how the game should play, and he's the up and coming rising star. But is he the right manager for Manchester United at that point? Then there's the question around, ethos and the style of play that we've become accustomed to, wide, wingers, a back four, two up front, or certainly 4-2-3-1, and a roaming, a fluid front four at least, and whether that system was going to be the right system for us. So it's a toss of a coin, and that's what the board selected, right? And then you got to go with it. You have got to give a little bit more time than you normally would, especially after the Ten Hag showing. And the fact that we've become this kind of manager merry-go-round football club, which we don't want to be and we don't want to see. We don't want managers to lose their jobs. So, but at the same time, the back end of your question about learning and taking things on from previous games and imparting them into training sessions and then seeing that on show at the weekend, we're seeing some of it, but we're not seeing that full, cohesive approach yet. We don't know who's going. We didn't know what was going to happen with the starting lineup today. We were close with that prediction, but we didn't know. And certain things stand out to me at least, and that I'm just one view. But certainly other, let's say, watchers of the game or analysts are asking similar questions, and they're not being fully answered at the moment. So it's a style of play that is not given us a cohesive and consistent approach, which then doesn't get those results that we need. And will that come? It just keeps on coming back to that question. And so again, we can only take that game by game. But the stats don't look good in terms of chances created, how we play, central penetrations, the kind of out wide and in philosophy where wing backs, which he said he wants to change and openly so now with the Dorgu comment. But at the end of the day, that they're the players he's had to deal with, and he platforms them in that way. So Dorgu put in the most crosses in. I can't remember the game it was now, but he's often the player on the opposition's first line. So yeah, it's just about, yes, he's inexperienced, but we're United and we need to learn from the inexperience game by game, period by period, and start to see something where we go, yeah, this is the guy that's going to take us for the next, 5-6 years.
And of course, coming into December, the games are ramping up a bit more now, so you can get a little bit more rhythm, a little bit more cadence about that, and get more regular opportunities to sort of scrutinise that progress, haven't we? So West Ham on Thursday, chance for a second win in a row, chance to sort of put the demons on Monday to bed, and yeah, while the rest of the league eats each other, there's still every game's an opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that'll very much depend on what happens in the West Ham Liverpool game, and Nuno's doing a bit of a revival job himself, to be fair. So it's going to be tougher than we think. It's two teams, it's going to be a bit of a basketball match. That we don't quite know what we're going to get. But on paper, at least, it's a game obviously that's hugely winnable. But you just can't talk about on paper anymore. Certainly in this juxtaposition of a league and players and teams not playing as you might expect, and this kind of dichotomy of styles that we're seeing at the moment, from the very high pressing teams to high counter press teams winning the ball high, Jurgen Klopp style, Iraola style that didn't work yesterday against the direct Sunderland, and then the direct play and the onus on set pieces like we're seeing from Arteta, of all managers, and getting result after result by using that style. So no, nothing is for certain, which goes to your point on Amarim. But let's bring some certainty to our style and our let's expect things, and try and see what's trying to play out, and so we can understand where we're going as a football club. And it's uh, it's tricky, but the win's the win today. Let's back it up with a rare consecutive win next time out.
We'd have taken it before the game, and we sure as hell would have taken it at half time, wouldn't we, the way it was unfolding? So let's enjoy it and go again Thursday. But in the meantime, Nick, thank you very, very much for joining. As ever, always a pleasure.
Cheers, Steve.